So for all those who joined in, good evening. Thank you for joining. Welcome to another live with Engage HR. We do this every Sunday, 8 p.m. IST on Instagram and Instagram Live. I invite speakers who are surrounding in the fraternity of human resource, training, people management, because that's what Engage HR is about. This time I've got my friend Alan. Let me tell you where Alan and me met. Alan was a performer at the recent TEDx that happened in Margao, and I was hosting the show, and that's where we met. And he did something very, very interesting. He sang a song to display leadership, and that was super cool. Everybody was blown away at TEDx. And I knew that I had to do this with him because leadership is one of my favorite topics as well. I was a very, very young leader, not ready to become a leader. And it's one of those, when they push you in the pool and say, learn yourself. That's exactly what happened with me when it came to leadership. So it's one of my favorite topics to talk about besides sales, of course. So that's where Alan and me met. Alan, before we get started and before we get into it, tell us a little about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you've done. And we'll get started that way.
Sure. Well, thanks, Ted, and thank you and the HR Exchange team for having me tonight. I think introducing myself basically to the audience, I see it as the biggest challenge. It's like to the audience would be like having them watch a maze show. Introducing myself is something like that, and let them find out for themselves who I am. I think that's the way I put it. From pretending to play a guitar at a very young age with a cricket bat, when I was very, very young, and to writing movie script with my friends, and in fact, with my school friends at the age of 10, wanting to have Amitabh Bachchan ji play lead role in a Bollywood movie. To accommodating my own lyrics in very popular musical tracks, to subsequently attempting joining Merchant Navy. Then what else? I mean, changing from science stream to the commerce stream, selling jeans pants, selling jewelry, metal, and eventually anti-corrosion products. Sports turfs today, and having a hand in event marketing, organizing sports tours. I have finally settled today as a business consultant and a leadership coach with my beautiful family in Panjim, Goa. So I think in a nutshell, that's me. I wear a lot of hats, it seems. That's what people tell me. But I'd like to describe myself as a good human being, a good fellow person to people around me. And I try to be a good family man as well. So if that's introduction, as I said earlier, let the maze be found by the audience itself and let them search for me within that maze that I've just put across.
So, Alan, very interesting. What I also do is every Tuesday we put out questions, right? Engage HR puts out questions and we tell people this is the topic, you can ask us questions on that. Last week we spoke about my first resume. Any questions on that? And people are asking us, a week before that, my first interview, and any questions. And one of the questions was, how do I answer this question? Tell me something about yourself.
Right.
And I told them that, you want to say something to your recruiter that's not on your resume, or rather you want to put it into a capsule and bring it out in a very interesting way. I'm going to use this part of this recording of what you've done with tell me something about yourself. I'm going to send it out to all those guys who asked me, how do we introduce ourselves and tell me something about yourself? You've done it beautifully. It was done really, really well. I couldn't stop smiling all through that. So thank you for that. I'm going to use that part of that recording for sure.
Credits.
Great. Alan, Thank you. All right. Leadership Studio, Alan. That's what it's called, right? Tell us something about that. How did it start? How did it originate?
So when I was in Abu Dhabi, working for a Canadian firm, my ex-boss at the time, he was a British gentleman who is no more today. May his soul rest in peace. Was an ardent fan of training the employees. And I know for a fact that during those days, early 2000 and all, training was not particularly a flavor in any corporate. Maybe in the insurance field, maybe in the banking sector, it was. But generally, if you look at hardcore corporates, they did not have training. The learning and development field so well focused, right? And it was just a pass by. Or if you had a leadership team which had that sort of interest, they would actually, engage in it. So I was exposed to an event by Ron Kaufman. Ron Kaufman is a wonderful motivational speaker. Even today, I watch his videos and I get inspired. And I was exposed to his event in Dubai, and went on to read one of his books. And the book was titled "Uplifting Services," right? And there there's where that belief in me started to get stronger. That customer is always right? No matter what, because we in sales, being in sales, and you've been in sales too, so we always believe that, right? Customer is always right. I mean, I know that there are occasions when we struggle with that particular statement, but that's how my belief strengthened. This Ron Kaufman show. Bob, I mean, again, my ex-boss at the time, invited his trainer friend, and in fact, when I had the session done earlier today, I messaged to the gentleman. He was a trainer from UK, and his name was Richard Napier, right? And Richard is still very active. In fact, he's retired now, but I actually sent him a text today, and I said I'm speaking, and I'll definitely use your reference. And he conducted a 3-day intense sales session, and all of this really helped me grow in my leadership skills, right? And then getting to work under different leadership styles, there were various types of leaders I worked under. I was a leader myself, and tried imparting my knowledge to others. But all of this kind of did one thing in me. I mean, I had a very, very strong feeling that the core subject that I want to develop in my career is leadership, right? In fact, one of my trainer friend from Chennai, Mr. Ashraf Ali, he runs an academy called Life Academy. He was invited to do a training session in Abu Dhabi in 2016. And that's when things became very, very firm. My passion for training and coaching was kind of cemented at that very point. And then 2019 was subsequently the year I decided to put down my papers in the corporate world. And, I started my own since 2019. And that's when I had to engage with something that I wanted to start. And I thought training and coaching was something that I wanted to get really involved in. Of course, more like a passion. And because I still had my business consultancy role going on. And when the training and coaching thing came in mind, I had to actually, put a system to it. And the audience I wanted to target was the young people, the youth, the school-going children, the college-going students, etc. And I thought of the name Leadership Studio. And that's how Leadership Studio was conceived. In 2019 is when Leadership Studio was conceived, right? And that's how it originated. I mean, my love for leadership, my passion for leadership. And I thought that, having a name, a brand to what I was planning to do would really carry a lot of value. And the rest is history. It's now almost 6 years.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So we all have that one spark, that one thing in life that happens that pushes us to do something that stays with us for life, I guess, then. I'm still there. I've not got there yet. I think I'm still waiting for that spark, but I'm almost there now. Leadership. And Alan, when in our lives do you think we discover that we have that instinct in us? Do you think there's a specific age that it happens at, or it could happen anytime? But when do you think we discover that?
Well, to begin with, and I know you attended the TEDx performance in Margao when I did the show, and I asked the question to the audience. I asked them this very question: do we all believe and understand that we are all born leaders? It's almost 95% of the time the answer is no. right? 5% of the audience kind of believe in what I just said, that we are all born leaders. And essentially, we are all born leaders. I mean, I think a child teaches the parents to actually do a lot of things. And I'll not get into that detail, but yes, the child teaches the parent discipline, the child teaches the parent to love, the child teaches the parent to indulge, the child teaches the parent to work hard, and the child teaches the parent to be creative. And if a child can do all of this, then certainly a child is a leader. So he is a born leader. So we are all born leaders in many aspects, right? So besides, we also understand that leadership is not just about us. It's about followers too, right? We have followers who follow us. So to do that, we need to show and enhance our leadership skills, right? So thinking about developing our leadership quality in many ways, you are actually taking up leadership of developing a healthy surrounding, a healthy environment, and in turn, your followers also be a part of that system, right? So developing leadership is something similar, I feel. You develop an environment, right? We need constant, best example I can probably give is we need constant watering, as such. Like, for example, if you talk about a sapling to a tree, the process. So what does the sapling need? The sapling needs good water. It needs good manure. It needs good foundation, right? And it needs strong roots. And then you will see that the beautiful tree is developed, right? Similarly, I believe that we need constant watering. What I mean by that? I mean, we need to listen to mentors. We listen to podcasts. We need to listen to teachers. We need to listen to parents or elders. So we need constant watering. Besides that, we need constant manuring. So what do I mean by manuring? I mean coaching, for example. We need to attend seminars. We need to attend workshops, right? We need to build our knowledge with programs that we attend. So constant manuring. And then finally, all of this creates that healthy foundation that we need, right? And by doing that, we form we develop a good leader, right? So essentially, we all have it in us, right? We may have to trigger back and remind ourselves of it, right? And but at some point or the other, realization will prompt you to act and rediscover the leadership instinct in you.
Very well put. I wasn't expecting this answer to go there, but very, very well put. So I'm completely in sync with you when you say that we're all born leaders. But yes, I think we need to keep igniting the spark. We need to keep watering the plant. We need to keep sharpening the axe, various ways of saying it. But if we stop doing that, if we refuse to acknowledge the fact that no matter how accomplished we get in life, we cannot stop learning. And I think the more we learn, it makes us better people. And that's, I think, the first most important ground rule of becoming a leader. If you're not a good person, you're never going to be able to lead other people, because that's what a leadership is all about. It's about leading people, it's about, I think, getting the better person out of someone else, because that's all that you're there to do, right, as a leader. So, okay, great. So we're all born leaders, but the actual quality of leading, and now I'm talking about at work, right? Is that something that can be trained, or is it something that you say you either have it or you don't? There are a few things that we say you either have it or you don't, like singing, for example, right? You can train your vocal cords to get to a point, but some people are just gifted, born singers, right? So leadership, can we train someone to be a better leader, or?
Yeah, I think. I mean, let me think about this analogy. I mean, sports, right? Like any sport you take, you have to have a coach, right? And what's the role of a coach? A coach, his role is to not to play with the talent or the skill of the student or his player. It is to mentor and guide him, right? And the example that comes straight to my mind is Rahul Dravid. Since he recently, went off as the coach of Indian team, but we remember him so, beautifully, that the example of Rahul Dravid, a perfectly balanced coach, right? So, there are a lot of examples I can give. In a parable in the Bible, for example, we talk about Jesus says, "Can a blind lead a blind?" Right? So you need to have a person, you need to have a mentor who can guide you, who can lead you to a perfect path that you are actually wanting to go, right? And so having a leadership coach is recommended. I mean, that's a recommended practice to have you that good business leadership in you to enhance your leadership traits. For example, a coach in form of a mentor is always the best route that you can take to achieve your goal in becoming a good leader, right? So a job of a coach is not to ensure that his candidate remains a student forever, but I believe that in fact he wants to develop his candidate with skills that he possesses and beyond, right? So you always want to see your students do better in life, right? So so yes, leadership can be learned. I mean, it's like any other skill or subject, right? We always talk about our brain being a muscle, right? Our brain is not a muscle. Our brain is an organ, correct? But yes, you can train your brain. You need to train your brain because the brain is always hungry for new information, new knowledge. And leadership is a skill, although we talked about it being born with it, but it's a skill that you always want to develop. As you rightly said, we need to refuel every time, every occasion that you get, every opportunity that you get. So yes, leadership is something that can be learned and you can get trained.
Perfect. And I agree.
Right.
Waqar just asked you the question, which we almost answered, but how important is it for an individual to change themselves in order to become a leader? It's not one of my questions, but I'll let you answer that.
Well, I mean, you see, can you just repeat the question though? Can I so that I frame
How
it and answer
how
properly?
important how important is it for an individual to
Mhm.
change themselves in order to become a leader?
So again, it's like using that example of a sapling developing into a tree, right? The sapling knows that it's going to be a tree finally, but what's the quality of the tree that you want to be, or what is the tree that you finally want to develop? It's a process, right? So how you water, how you manure. So similarly, yes, every person, uh, you know, has to first of all, uh, look into himself and find that leader in him. Because as I said, as we agreed, that we all are born leaders, but somewhere down the line we need to reignite that, right?
Sure.
And by
Perfect. Yes.
attending workshops, attending sessions, attending seminars, or listening to podcasts, that is when we come to a realization. And forget all of that. You don't have to go that far, right? Look around people around you, like your family members, your brothers, for example, or your parents could be examples of great leaders, right? So we imbibe those qualities and become good leaders too. So I think we don't
Right.
need to look too far sometimes. We have it around us, and we can certainly become great leaders.
Right. Right. And if I may add to that, Waqar, in an answer to your question, change is the only thing that's constant. So if you resist it, you're not going to go too far forward. You're constantly, for example, I come with a lot of background with BPO, and in a
Mm.
BPO, a typical team leader has about 15 to 20 people in his team. Now, the one of the things that we need to remember as leaders is that in our team there are people, and every individual person has their own logics, their own egos. If those work together in sync, there's magic. But if they start clashing, then there's fireworks which we don't want. But as a leader, how you deal with different people is about you constantly changing the hats that you're wearing. Right? Sometimes you're wearing a hat of a good cop. Sometimes you're playing a bad cop. Sometimes you're saying yes to a leave. Sometimes you're saying no to take that extra break. You're constantly changing, Bakar. So, adding to that is what Alan just said. While you're trying to wear those different hats, if you're not learning how to remove and put those hats, which in other words, you're not training yourself constantly, um, I think you're going to fall short of being a good leader. So I'm completely in sync with what Alan said, which is don't stop learning. Alan, there's been a paradigm shift the way I look at it from 2001, from which was my first 2001 was my first corporate job. From then to now, there's been a paradigm shift in the way leadership has turned, and also the way the people have changed. Right. In 2001, I was probably 21, something like that. But if I kind of look at what me and the people that I worked with were then, and what 21 year olds are now, they're completely different beings altogether, right? I'm sure because they've changed with time. Time has changed. The challenges must have changed too. So, and you're doing so much of the leadership training. What are the challenges that today's young leaders are facing? Are they different from what we used to face? And if yes, maybe if you can throw some light on that.
Yeah. So no, it's a question that comes quite often, and I believe that, see, first of all, we need to I'm talking about India in particular because that's where I'm focusing and kind of having my students. India is a young nation, right? When you look at stats, it basically tells you that more than half of India's population, is under 25, right? And it goes on to say more than 65% of the population is under 35. More than 65%. That's a huge number, right? So one must remember when we talk about leadership today, it was about a specific field. It's not about a specific field or an event, right? It's not about politics or sports, right? It is about oneself, right? It is about an individual. Everyone is a leader, right? The youth of our nation, I strongly believe, need to understand that it is purely about academics. It's not purely about academics, right? It is simply about one particular skill or a trait, right? So we must remember that we have learned today. What we have learned today will, as you rightly said, what we learned in 2001 doesn't exist today, right? Mobiles, for example, came only in 1995, right? And before that, we used to wait for a trunk call. We used to book trunk calls to make a phone call. Today, you and I are speaking live, right? We are speaking live on an Insta channel. People are watching us speak as well. So the world is constantly changing, right? And the young have to learn the art of adaptability. They have to embrace change and champion it, right? And they need to transform their lives literally every day. Every day they need to embrace it. That's the challenge young people have. They cannot be paused with the same monotonous life. They need to embrace a change, and they need to have a purpose. They need to have a goal set. And I believe in short-term goals, especially when I talk about the young. I tell them, till the age of 30, you need to constantly learn. When I ask them the question, what is the opposite of success? Many a times we have the answer. The opposite of success is failure. And I tell them, failure is just a process of success. It's a part of success. It's not the opposite of success. It's only through failures you learn. Right. So I think the biggest challenge that today the youth is facing is distraction in various forms. Obviously, even I think the people like us, we also have our own distractions. And how and when they overcome that, I think, and embrace it as a change, not a distraction, I think that's when the youth will be able to overcome challenges. Right. So I'm very optimistic about today's youth. We may look at them in a very different way sometimes, but I think we need to be as broad-minded as they are to accept, the style of their work. Because I don't think 10 years down the line, and I was having a conversation the other day with a gentleman, and he said 10 years down the line, we will not have any employees. People will not have employees at all. Everyone will be a consultant, and he or she will be doing bits and pieces of his own specialty roles. You want a Alan D'Souza for 10 minutes, you'll get him. You want a Stead for 1 hour doing podcasts, you'll get him. So everyone will have a niche, and that is what we need to develop. I think over the next 10 years, there's going to be a lot of more changes that we are surprisingly going to expect and receive, right?
Wow, that is an amazing way of looking at it. I mean, yeah. So everybody's going to be a consultant. I'm still taking that in. I'm still taking that in. But okay. So coming back to the question which you answered so beautifully, which is yeah. So while you were talking about technology having changed so much from where you are, I was thinking about even parenting, and I was having a conversation a couple of days. How different parenting must have been for our parents, and how different is parenting for us today. It was, if I had to look back, was it simpler for them? I don't know. But they didn't have to look at things like, what is my child looking on the phone? Do I have to put a child lock? Do I have to know what they're watching on YouTube? I think what parents then really had to do was make breakfast. The child has gone to school. Now, when he comes back, my parenting starts again. But now it's so different. Even while the child is at school, I have to constantly be thinking what that person's doing there, because there's so much happening, which, everything's changed. You're absolutely right that the youth today have their challenges, I think, are a lot more bigger than what the challenges were for us, because they have to constantly change. They have to constantly be moving with time. So for all of you guys who are in that age, and you've joined here, this is probably, I think, the most important point that Alan's brought up, is that the world is constantly changing. And in the
Sure.
last, I think, 10, 15, 20 years, it's changed rapidly, and it's still changing. So if you refuse to change, you're going to be left out. And I think that's the most important point, that a good leader is someone today, a good leader is someone who's accepting new and moving forward with it. So, Alan, that was, I think that's the highlight of the talk today. And even after this call, I'm going to still be sinking in where everyone's a consultant. I'm still taking that in. So,
Right,
Alan,
right.
of course, you've already given the first advice, which is, learn, keep learning, accept change. But what other advice do you have for our leaders of tomorrow?
Yeah, I think you had a very apt title for today's conversation, and we really love the title. And I think leaders connect. I mean, especially the young, they connect so well. I mean, when you have your workshops in the colleges, I think the energy ball that gets just created in the environment there is amazing, right? So it's hard to give advice, because they know what they're doing. These people, they just need direction, and that's what leadership is all about. We as coaches and mentors just have to show them a little bit of direction, and they are on the right path, right? But since you asked the question, I would say the youth of today have to stay connected with the day's technology. As you rightly said, we have AI, and we have so many other things that even I don't understand at times, but we have to get in sync and embrace the importance of improving on soft skills. I mean, we can't emphasize more on that subject. I mean, soft skills is something which is paramount. I mean, you may be the best of engineers or a doctor, but unless you have developed your soft skills, you're not going to sell yourself. I mean, I'm not talking about selling a profession. I'm talking about being the person people want to approach to, right? And above all, we need to work hard. We talk about that, work smart, not hard. Yes, that comes with age and experience, probably, but you need to work hard, right? Enhance your soft skills. Listen to leadership podcasts. My favorites are Simon Sinek. We have John Maxwell out there. We have Robin Sharma's. There are so many, right? We have access. Make best use of the YouTube channels that we can access to. Read books, autobiographies in particular. I think that is something that I always propagate. And love and peace. We need to spread that. Most importantly, and my favorite acronym is FAT. Learn to handle FAT. And what does FAT stand for? FAT stands for failure management, anger management, and time management. If you know to handle failure, I think you're the most successful person. If you know to manage your anger, we see so many brawls on the street for no reason. We see so many issues on the roads. We don't want that. We need to learn to manage anger. Everybody has a situation, the stress that he or she is carrying, right? We need to understand what the other person. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Anger management and time management. I can't emphasize enough. Life management and time management go hand in hand, right? So fat. I think that's something that the youth need to manage: failure management, anger management, and time management.
For the first time, the word fat used with so much of positivity. For the first time, that word used with so much of positivity. Failure, anger, and time. I think that is absolutely sound advice. It is wonderful. So I'm picking on a point that Alan just made, which is we made a point earlier that because there's so much of technology changing, you need to change with time. But guys, that same technology is why I say you guys are a lot luckier than what I was when I was 20. I didn't have that kind of access to technology. I did not have the Simon Sinek's, and there was no way for me to be able to hear someone like him, even live or even recorded, so easily that you guys have it at your fingertips, available now. So make the best of it. Don't stop learning. I cannot emphasize what Alan has already said more than what he's already said it, that you guys have to keep learning. Remember, no matter how much technical knowledge you get, as a leader, you're not managing laptops and mouse and wires. You're managing people, and learning about people is never going to stop, because till today, no one knows the brain in itself to its entirety. So if the best scientists in the world themselves say that they don't know the brain, then there's no way that we know people. So there's no way you can stop learning. Failure, anger, time, maybe even money to some matter. That these are things that we don't look that we need coaching on these things. We don't think that we need coaching on these things because we think, well, it's just there. But you could never be more wrong. You could never be more wrong on how much coaching you need in failure, how much mentoring you need in managing your time and money, how much advice you could use there, direction you could use there. And man, oh man, he's completely right when he said we have to control our anger. It's all over the place. Road rage se leke anger at work it's happening every day. So fat
In
is
fact, Seth, sorry to interrupt you, but let's I know you're almost winding down here, and I've got a song on my screen, and I'm going to sing 2 lines, 4 lines, and we're going to. I hope it's okay, right? So it's about the song. Don't worry, be happy, right? We sing this. Don't worry, be happy. But I'm going to sing a Hindi version of it in the sense I put my own words. As I said, I play with lyrics when it comes to music. So it goes like this. कभी खुशी कभी गम आंसुओं में भी है दम डोंट वरी बी हैप्पी रोना हंसना सभी को है मुस्कुरा के जीना है डोंट वरी बी हैप्पी that's it. Don't worry, be happy.
Dude, that is so cool. That is absolutely cool. No one sang on these Insta lives before, so thank you so much. It's wonderfully done, Alan. I can't thank you enough for being here today, for all the advice, direction, for all the words of wisdom that you've given out. I'm sure everyone who joined here is taking something away today. So thank you so much for your time, guys. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope this was helpful. Engage HR with new people every Sunday, 8 p.m. on Insta Live. Be there. We're doing new things every week, all targeted at human resource training, learning, people. That's all that we're doing here. So, Alan, again, thank you very much for your time. We will keep in touch. There's a lot more work to do. And just to let you know, we've also got the license for TEDx Panjim now. So we've got Margao and Panjim together.
Watch
So
the space.
a lot more work to do. Watch that space, yeah.